Hello everyone, welcome to another video in the series of Minitab tutorials. In our past videos, we have seen how a correlation between two sets of variables, an x and y, can be understood using scatter plot. And in case if there is a multiple regression, that is a single y, and we need to examine the relationship between a single y against multiple x's, then we use a matrix plot. And matrix plot not only helps us to understand relationship between a single y and a multiple x, but it also helps us to identify collinearity or multicollinearity among multiple x's within themselves. So these are all things that we can understand using a matrix plot. But in today's video, we will understand a new graph that is being available in Minitab version 21, which is correlogram, and how correlogram is a much better and easy graph to make interpretations on multicollinearity compared to a matrix plot. Let's go to the video. Friends, as I was explaining before, here is a scenario of multiple regression. So I have a y metric, which is thickness of a metal plate, which is my output parameter, and this thickness of metal plate get impacted by various input parameters like film density, tensile strength, air bubbles, vacuum pressure, air pressure, preheat, dwell temperature, mold temperature. So these are all different individual x's which we think could impact my thickness. Now, to see whether this really impact my thickness or not, I need to understand the relationship between my individual x's and my y, and also because it's going to be multiple regression, I need to also examine presence of multicollinearity among the x's. So to do this, what I can do in my traditional graph that Minitab offers, I can click on graph and I can go to matrix plot. So a matrix plot helps me to examine the relationship between my y and my x's and also among the x's. So I select this simple option, and here I select thickness as my y metric and all the other as my x metrics. So I can select this, and in matrix options I can have a full matrix, or I can have a top right, or I can have a lower left. So here I'm selecting lower left. Upper right is also an option that we can select. Maybe to start with, I will select upper right and show you. So this is how the graph is getting represented, and if you want to examine this closely, the one you see at the top is the relationship between thickness, which is your y metric, thickness with film density will come here, thickness with tensile strength, you will be able to see it here. So similarly, thickness with all the other x's you will be able to see. At the same time, film density and tensile strength, you can understand it here, and film density and air bubbles, you can understand it here. Vacuum pressure and air pressure, you can understand it here. So by this way, you will be able to examine the relationship between your individual x's with your y and also the x's among themselves, and you are able to see that there is some amount of collinearity between these two x's, film density and tensile strength. Similarly, there is some amount of collinearity between air pressure and vacuum pressure. You can see a relationship here. To an extent, air bubbles and preheat, to an extent, tensile strength and preheat. Here also you can see some kind of collinearity. So you can understand relationship between y and individual x's, and you can also understand relationship among the x's using this kind of a matrix plot. And this used to be our traditional graphical representation to understand multicollinearity. However, in Minitab version 21, there is another graph that is in offer for us. Maybe to see how this graph looks, the same matrix plot, if I select lower left, the graph will look something like this, where the axis would be slightly changed, axis would be slightly different. So if you see here, this is how the graph will look like. Again, same graph, but here your thickness will be in this axis and you will have your dwell time here. So this is a relationship between thickness and film density. So here thickness will become an x-axis and film density will become a y-axis. So this first row will give you relationship between thickness and all these x's. So that's how the graph changes, just to have a look of a different view of it. And if at all you wanted to have a full version, so you can go for matrix plot and you can keep this full option checked, and if you click OK and OK, you get both the graphs, and it becomes very complex to study if it becomes or if you want to analyze it in this way. the graph becomes very complex. So the better option is you can either go for a upper right or bottom left and analyze this graph. So this is the traditional way of interpreting relationship between your y variable with x's and also presence of, if at all, if you want to understand presence of multicollinearity among the x's. Now the latest version of Minitab version 21 gives us an an option. So I click on graph and I get something called correlogram. So what is a correlogram? So if we want to see the definition that Minitab offers correlogram, so correlogram is visualizes and compare the strength and direction of linear relationship between pairs of x and y variable. The same thing it does. It again gives you the relationship between your thickness and all the other parameters. In this case, all your other parameters are selected and I click on OK. Now there is a tab here which says display correlation value. So I'm going to put a tick mark on this display correlation value. And here I kept it as automatic, but the best way to keep this as diverging symmetric around 0. Why diverging symmetric around 0 is the best way, not automatic or not high, sequential high, sequential low is when you keep it sequential high, it gives you the relationship in a darker color, and as the relationship become lower and lower, the color goes down to lower shade of the color or white. But if you keep it diverging symmetric around 0, positive correlation will be shown in a different color and negative correlation will be shown in a different color. So that's why I'm selecting this. I'll show you both the options. When I complete this video, I'll show how the other options also look like. Now I click OK, and when I click OK, I get this kind of a graph. And what is the good thing about this kind of graph is where you see a dark brown or a dark red color, it indicates there is a strong positive correlation. And if you see here, the strong positive correlation for film density and thickness, strong positive correlation for film density and maybe 0.64 film density, thickness and film density, yes, you get a strong positive correlation. Thickness and tensile strength, you get a strong positive correlation. Thickness and air pressure, not strong, weak, because 0.64. Whereas on the negative side, if you see thickness and preheat, there is a strong negative correlation. And thickness and vacuum pressure also somewhat kind of a weak correlation. So you are able to make a decision about relationship not by looking at the pattern, like in this case you look at the pattern, sorry, let me show you this. Yeah, in this case you look at the pattern and you make a decision, whereas in this case you look at the color of the correlogram and the coefficient value, the correlation coefficient value. So the interpretation of results become easier compared to what used to be our traditional matrix plot. So this option is available in Minitab 21, and you can make use of this option to examine the relationship between your x variable and individual y variable, and also relationship among the x's. So that is possible. As I told you, just I'll show you how this option changes. Instead of me selecting diverging symmetric around 0, if I select sequential low to high, the graph looks something like this, which is relatively difficult for you to make a decision, because as it get more and more light white, it becomes, or more and more light blue, it becomes negative correlation. So it's difficult to understand. Whereas if you see the previous option of diverging at 0, it becomes easy because the positive and negative correlations are expressed in two different color codes. As you see darker and darker red, and as you see darker and darker blue, you will be able to make a relationship about what kind of correlation they have. On top of it, you also have the correlation coefficient value getting displayed in the graph itself. Friends, I hope this video was helpful for you to compare what is our traditional matrix plot and correlogram. Both are same kind of graphical representation, but in correlogram, the interpretation of the results have been made much more easier in terms of understanding it through the color gradient, and also having the correlation coefficient value getting displayed in the chart itself, in compared to what is our traditional matrix plot. I hope this video was useful. This video will be useful during your multiple regression analysis to understand the relationship and make decisions accordingly, and then move to the best subset model and perform your multiple regression. Friends, for more videos on Minitab tools, techniques and graphical representation, kindly subscribe our channel. This video would have added value to your understanding of multicollinearity and how to graphically examine that multicollinearity. Thanks for your time. See you in another Minitab related video. Thank you.